Hi there folks, and welcome to a brand new series. This series is called Circuits, and as you can see we're in a fairly unfamiliar place. This is not 7 Days to Die. This is not some crazy update on the mini bike, the mini aeroplane. No, this is Prepar3d, and I did mention a couple of videos back in 7 Days to Die that I would start to do some flight simulation videos. Flying is my other passion, and here we are. So I thought I'd start this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to, it's called circuits because doing a circuit is basically aviation talk for flying around an airport or an airfield. So what we're going to do is basically put ourselves in some really exotic places, in some lovely aircraft, do some circuits, do a bit of sightseeing and land, basically take off and land. So relatively short videos, just taking in the sights. Along the way I'm going to be learning how to fly some of these aircraft, so I'm not an expert by any means. I am learning in the real world, so I use this to do difficult things like flying in bad weather and engine outs and instrument flying at night, that sort of thing, which it's really good for. So this is our first ever episode of this series. We're sitting in a Piper Cherokee, lovely little aircraft. This is by A2A Simulations, absolutely fantastic company. I've got quite a few of their aircraft and they're all top-notch stuff. We're sitting on a taxiway at Shoreham Airport in Sussex in the UK. I live in Brighton, so this is literally just down the road. This is my main airfield. So we're basically going to get this aeroplane started up and we're going to take off. I'm going to take you into Brighton, show you some of the sights, fly back and land, hopefully with minimal damage to the aircraft. This aircraft will actually log damage, and if you don't treat it right, things will start to break. So I don't know, I quite like the idea of keeping this aircraft for the next few circuits and just to see how we're treating it and see whether we are doing the proper things. As you can see, my ailerons are up. This is because we have the control lock engaged. So one of the great things about A2A simulations is that we can pull up some of these little in-game menus, so we can get rid of the control lock. When I press this, you'll see the yoke come forward and the ailerons will be in the central position. That's basically to stop wind getting underneath and moving them around and flapping them around in the wind, because you don't want to sort of wear these out. We've also, if I come outside of the aircraft for a second, there we go, there she is, gorgeous. We've got the wheel chocks and the tie downs and the picture at heat cover on, so those things need to come off. Look at this texturing, absolutely gorgeous. The way the shadows, reflections are modelled, really nice stuff. So we'll go back into the cockpit. I'm still trying to master the views here. I'm running everything in Windows 10. I've made this switch and so far really liking it. It's really given me some good performance increase, as you can see. This might not look like a great number of frames per second, but this particular flight simulator, well, Flight Sim X as well, which is the old Microsoft one, are really systems heavy. You need a fairly decent processor in particular to run FSX. This is slightly more dependent on your graphics card. As I said, I've got a pretty, I don't know, standard graphics card. It's a GTX 760. It's not bad, but it's, I'd really like a 970 or even a 980 Ti. But this will do for now. So as you can see, we're getting a little bit steamed up. So why don't we go ahead, I'll stop talking and we'll get this thing started up. So I'm going to try and do this. We'll get rid of the tie downs and the covers and stuff. I'm going to try and do this. Oh, I must remember to turn my notifications off next time. Sorry about that. Without a checklist, to see if I can remember. It's pretty straightforward starting this up. I'm going to click here to get rid of the yoke so I can see what's going on here. So the first thing to do is we turn on our rotating beacon. That's the red light on the tail of the engine of the aircraft. That tells people when we turn the power on that we have got power and we could start at any time. So there's our master switch. That turns the battery on. That gets all the stuff warming up. We are going to turn our fuel pump on. We're going to prime the engine. Before we do that, we are going to switch our fuel on, fuel flow to the main, from the main tanks. With that, we are going to prime the engine, as I said. Usually 2 or 3, we'll do 3 for good measure. Our throttle needs to be cracked and in by about 1/4 of an inch. Mixture needs to be rich, and we need to turn our magnetos on. I think that's about it. I think we're pretty much good to start now. Apologies if I've missed anything. I'm not doing all the checks and all the kind of procedures, so there are some die-hard channels, excellent channels out there that if you really want to learn how to do this properly, I'd highly recommend going to those. One in particular is Frugal. He does a great job, and another guy, both English. Well, Frugal's English, but he lives in the States, and a guy called Matt Davis, who's mostly into the bigger jets, but both doing a great job. So let's turn our fuel pump. I can't remember whether we leave our fuel pump on while we start or not. Anyway, we'll start her up. Hopefully we'll... There you go. She'll start humming away. Fuel pump, I think, can come off now. And basically we just let this warm up. You'll see the mist go as we... Everything's modelled on here. Really cool. You can hear the wind noise from the prop there. So really cool stuff. I'm going to put the headphones in. That simulates the slightly quieter sound. I hope my voice isn't too loud. Okay, so we're going to turn some lights on. I'm going to do this here. We need our strobe. We're going to turn our instrument lights on and radios stack. We're not really going to be using the radios at all, to be honest, guys. We will turn the avionics on. You'll hear a beeping sound any second. But we're not going to use those because we're not using ATC. So again, we're not following procedures at all, really, and especially regards to radios. To even start the engines, you need to have clearance and all that sort of stuff. We're not going to bother. So these are our checklists. We've gone beyond this now. Engine start and taxi. We've done a lot of this stuff. We're going to assume the oil pressure is all okay. That's over here. It looks all right on quick glance. Nav lights as required. Blah blah blah. So this is our ground check, or run-ups as they're called. You never ever would skip this except in the simulator. This is to make sure that the engines are running nicely and all the pressurizations are all fine. So if you miss that out, you're really risking not seeing any issues and having engine failures and stuff like that. So again, I'm going to assume this is okay. The thing we need to check is this is our trim setting here. I'll explain what some of this stuff is when we get up in the air, but I think we are good to go. So we're going to taxi across to the... Whoops, we're already rolling. Look at that. So we're going to taxi across to the... yeah, I'm just checking the brakes. The brakes are working fine. So, yeah, I'm going to unplug these because it's slightly more realistic. Right, so we're lining up, coming towards the threshold. And basically this is, you would stop here and you would call for ATC to get clearance. And that's runway 31, that's what we're going to be taking off on. So we're just going to line up and get ready to take off, basically. So again, if you've stumbled across this video and you're a die-hard sim fan, do not like troll me and you didn't do this, you didn't do that. That's not the point here. I'm not confessing to be an expert at all. My brakes are a bit iffy. Okay, I'll double check that. So yeah, I'm not following perfect procedures by any means. So what we'll set some flaps. We'll do flaps 1. There, 1. I we probably don't even need it. So I haven't even checked the ATIS for weather and all that stuff. The weather is real world weather. This is the morning, and the weather is injected by a great program called Active Sky Next. Blah blah blah. I'm gonna talk more about this. That's our landing lights. They need to come on. We need our... everything else is fine. Okay, I'm just going to slightly adjust the view here. So let's get this thing up in the air, and then as we are flying around, I'm going to talk about, you know, some of the scenery and what's powering this stuff, because it might be quite interesting to you. So here we go. So I'm going to step on the brake. Oh, my toe brakes are really not working properly. Okay, well, don't worry, we won't worry about that. So we'll advance the throttles, and we're looking for about 75 knots for to rotate, which means pulling up on the stick, essentially. So trying to maintain central position on the runway, and we can start to pull up. And there we go. We're airborne. This building over to the left here is Lancing College. It's a beautiful old building. Really nice school. So we'll just maintain runway heading for a while we gain some altitude. We're climbing out just over about 85 knots, which is pretty good, pretty perfect. And I'm just trimming as we're going. I'm starting to bring the nose down a bit. My flaps can come up. And just going to reduce the power slightly. Sorry if I'm shouting a bit. Okay, so we're just coming up to 1,000 feet now, which is nice. The sea is over there. So we're going to do a right-hand turn. And we're going to sort of track along the coast over into Brighton. Let's get up to about 2,000 feet. So we'll continue the climb. Nice gentle turn here, feeding in a little bit of rudder just to keep the turn nice and coordinated. And yeah, the stress of the takeoff is all behind us, and we can start to relax. This is where the cabin stewards come round with a G&T. We wish. Oh, better. We're at 1,500 feet now. We'll continue climbing up a bit as we come out. So we're sort of going over the top of Shoreham at the moment. We'll just head out to sea so we can track the coastline, and we'll see some of the sights of Brighton. So as you can see, the bobbing around, obviously that's due to very light turbulence. There's not much of a wind today at all. So it's perfect conditions for flying. This is actually the morning, so we're about 3 minutes past 5 in the morning, so nice and early. And we'll just level off now. We're approaching 2,000 feet. This is the altimeter here. This is our vertical speed indicator. This tells us whether we're climbing or descending. The 0 point is straight and level. So I'm using the trim switch now just to bring that down. Probably come off the power a little bit to help that as well. So as you can see, we're just tracking over. This down here is Shoreham Power Station. So we'll start a gentle left-hand turn, and we're just descending a bit. So I'll bring the nose up. We want to keep that at 0 really as best we can. And there we go. So it will start to get, you know, the light will change as we get further on into the day. Okay, so we'll just mosey along here. In fact, what we'll do, just for a bit of fun, is I'll just decrease the power. The nose will start to drop, as you can see. I want to show you some of the sights, because we'll be in Brighton before you know it. This is sort of West Hove, I guess, Portslade area. This actually is Boundary Road right here. I've lived in Brighton for quite some time, so I know it quite well. So our throttle is now pretty much idle, so we're gliding down essentially. And you can hear out there, there's not much wind noise. It's a beautiful day for flying. So we're gonna come down to about 1,000 feet, and I'll show you some of the sights along the coast. Brighton has two piers. We have the old West Pier, which we're coming up on shortly, and then we have the new, well, it's not that new, but the modern pier, if you like. They're actually building a new. This is the West Pier right here. It was damaged by fire, so a lot of it's missing, but it's kind of become a symbol for Brighton. Beautiful old rusty thing in the sea. It's quite an interesting sight. But yeah, they're now building this sky tower thing at the moment, which I have to say is pretty ugly. So I'm just going to level off a bit. We don't want to descend too low along the coast here. So I'm pulling back on the yoke and I'm adjusting the trim just to give us a bit more sort of level flight here. It's requiring quite a lot of trim. We need a bit of power, that's probably why. Okay, so we're pretty low here, 400 feet. This tower here is Sussex Heights. I've got a couple of friends who live in Sussex Heights. So, hello guys. So there's the old pier now. You can see it's sort of missing. That's a really good model of it actually. We had a storm last year and some of it's even missing a bit more. So, and this is the new modern pier. I say it's new, it's not that new. I don't know exactly when it was built, but this has got, like, you know, all the usual pier-y type stuff on it. Rides and fruit machines, all that kind of stuff. And then up this way we've got the lovely village, I think it is a village, of Rottingdean and Saltdean further along the coast here. Okay, so we'll power up, we'll get some altitude, and maybe we'll go and investigate some of these clouds. And I'll show you the volumetric nature of the clouds. Quite interesting. If you're into that kind of thing. Tell you what, we'll fly inland a bit as well. Look at those lovely reflections on the wing there. Really is well done. Okay. I reckon these clouds are at about 4,000 feet, so we can try and get up there. The weather is nice and calm. Of course, what I haven't checked is the winds aloft. So the winds that are basically just going to put. Well, we've got the engines on full for the climb. We'll just put the headphones in. So the winds that occur in the sky, so to speak, higher up, get stronger. So there is a danger. I haven't checked what we call the winds aloft. So the winds that are higher up, very different to the surface wind. So we might sort of bounce around a bit more up here, but we'll see. I think those actually, my estimate of 4,000 feet was a bit conservative. I think probably it's going to be more like 6,000 feet, I would say. We'll see, we'll do our best. Of course, we've got Gatwick not too far away from Brighton, so we need to be slightly careful. We're not flying online, there's going to be no traffic. There's no in-game traffic either, I've turned all that off. It's a real frame rate hitter. You can get external traffic, which is pretty good. But yeah, we're just flying. We're the only plane in the skies as we speak. So Luckily the winds are nice and calm. Well, we're at 5,000 feet, so maybe we'll save the clouds for another day. Let's start to make a left-hand turn. Just going to pull the throttle back a little bit. There we go. So we're sort of tracking in along back to the airfield. We're almost there with the clouds. Come on, let's go for it. We'll have to circuit around to lose the altitude, because again, I don't know how much you guys know about flying, but I suspect if you found this by the title, you probably actively look for flight sim videos, and in which case you're not going to learn a great deal from me. But if you've come to this because you follow Luna's World, our channel, then I don't know, I can probably help you with some stuff. But basically, obviously when you descend, you pick up more speed, so you've got to be careful with power and make sure that you're not going to overspeed the engine, which can cause damage. And if you're too fast, obviously, then the structural integrity of the plane will start to be in jeopardy, which you really don't want. That's not a good thing. Okay, so let's head over to this cloud here. We'll just fly through it, because these textures really are nice. So we're coming up to 6,000 feet. The ATIS is something that every airfield or airport has. It's a radio frequency that you tune into, and it tells you that information. It tells you wind, speed, wind direction, cloud base, and all that sort of stuff. So we'll just go through this cloud. You'll see some of the effects. We'll bob around a bit more as the friction is interrupted by moisture. But it's pretty realistic. I don't know. So these are volumetric clouds, so you can see through them. There we go. And they're nothing. These clouds are really benign. I forget the name of them. I should know, but they're not going to cause too much turbulence anyway. So as you can see, our left-hand side, the window there's our airfield. That's Shoreham. So there we go. Let's open the window. There you go. Right there. Let a bit of fresh air in here. Anyway, so what we'll do is we'll decrease the power. That's going to bring the nose down, and we'll basically just descend nice and gently. I'll take the headphones out now. So yeah, we don't want the nose to fall away too much. These numbers here are basically feet, so this is 500 feet and 1,000 feet, so all that's pretty nice and gentle. About 500 foot is a good, nice gentle rate of descent. We haven't got any passengers on board, but they would be happy with that. Anything greater than about 2,000 is in this small plane is pretty uncomfortable. So you know, let's decrease the power a bit more. So out along the coast here, we've got Shoreham, Southwick, Shoreham. This is I think this is Shoreham actually. This is Southwick, Portslade, and then further along here, it's not quite drawn on yet. If we were to go along further, we would see Worthing, Newhaven, not Newhaven, Worthing, Littlehampton, and then Chichester, and blah blah blah. There's more, you know, that sort of direction. Okay, right, concentrate. We're going to try and increase the descent a bit here. And as we go around the world, basically I'm going to be using real world weather. So it's going to be interesting. I'm not going to change the weather. Obviously, if it's too crazy to fly in, we'll still give it a go. Why not? Why not? You know, there's certain parameters that you wouldn't fly in, especially in small aircraft. It would just, for example, thunderstorms and things like that are a big no-no. They just get ripped apart. You wouldn't even consider it. It's high speed winds and crosswinds and things like that. You wouldn't even attempt. But luckily, we can, because it's not real. I have to say though, when I'm flying, I try to treat it like it is real. We can take a few liberties in this series. That's part of the fun. But for me, the whole point of this, it's not really a game. It is a simulation, and it can behave exactly like the real world if you want it to. So for me, it makes sense to treat it in that way, because that's really what it's about. So if we have a look back, we should be able to see the airport just coming up over our left shoulder. It's somewhere sort of here. So let's do a bit of a right hand turn as we descend. Obviously when you turn, the nose is going to want to fall as you turn, so you have to counteract that if you want with bringing the nose up a bit. We actually want to descend, so I'm not going to worry about it too much, as long as we're not descending too quickly. This is a very nice, gentle descent, and that's what we're trying to do. So we'll level off at about 2,000, so we've got another 2,000 feet to go. And I'll show you some of the ground scenery. Just realised one of the things I haven't reinstalled since upgrading to Windows 10 is I've got the UK specific scenery, which I will install because it's really nice. Again by ORBX. Puts roads and just kind of upgrades the scenery. So this is default scenery, but with the replaced ORBX textures. It's still pretty nice. And I've also got ORBX HD trees, which is pretty nice as well. So I'm not following procedures or charts for the approach and things like that. This is all visual flying, so please don't comment saying, why aren't you following charts, blah blah blah. This is just a nice flight without any stresses. I mean, maybe I will do another series with more sort of paying more attention to procedures and charts and things like that. I don't know how much you guys are interested in that. So I'm going to idle the throttle now, and as you can see, there is our airfield. I don't know if you can make out the red light. Those lights are called PAPI lights, and you can see hopefully one red one and one white one. That means we're on what's called the glide path. We've got a good rate of descent for the distance that we are away from the airport, essentially. So we want to kind of try as much as possible to keep maintaining that one red and one white. Something just changed there. We're a bit far out to be worrying about it right now. But what I'm going to do is put one stage of flaps. I'm going to land probably on 2 stages of flaps. As we do that, the nose will come down. So we need to just correct that by using the trim. Right, we're a bit, just lost the airfield for a second there. So the flaps will slow us down. It will allow us to fly at a slower speed because it increases the surface area of the wing, which means that we can fly slower without dropping out the sky. Alright, so basically now we're sort of starting to line up with the runway, and we would call for clearance and make sure that they knew we were coming in and all that sort of stuff, but we're not going to worry about that. So we're just going to keep an eye on the speed. We'll go to another stage of flaps again, so that will slow us down a bit more. and it will drop the nose down. So all the while I'm doing this, you can't see me doing it, but I'm adjusting the trim. That's to relieve the pressure, because basically you don't want to be holding the yoke back all the time. You get tired arms. So the trim wheel just adjusts the pressure on the elevators to allow you to kind of reset the position, which means you don't have to constantly keep holding back on the yoke if you want to maintain level flight. So sort of poor man's autopilot. Okay, so we're approaching 1,000 feet, and that the PAPI lights are telling us that's a pretty good altitude. We are descending at 500 feet a minute, so I think we're okay. We're a little bit fast, I think, perhaps. We'll go to another stage of flaps, see if we can bring that speed down. And of course, that will alter the trim settings. And then hopefully we can reset the trim settings. Just feed in a bit of power, not too much. I do have an issue with the toe brakes. I thought I calibrated them properly, and I didn't. So we're a little bit low now. Can you see it's gone to 3 red. So we got one white light. That means we're slightly too low, but it doesn't matter too much. Okay, now we're slightly too high. Can you see? So I'm adjusting the pitch, and we're pretty much bang on now. So hopefully it gets to a point where you're pretty close, like now, where you can start to ignore the PAPI lights and do everything visually. So I'm going to just bring the power down a little bit, and I'm just going to stop talking while I try and concentrate on this. We're not going to come to a great stop because of the brake issue, so I want to adjust the power so that we don't fly off the end of the runway. Whoops, there's a bit of turbulence there. Alright, so a little bit of rudder. Okay, alright, not the best landing in the world. So again, something strange going on with my brakes. That's why we're flying all over the place. Try and maintain a central position. With this aircraft, you actually have to steer on the brakes a bit. The rudder control on the ground is not great. Okay, well, we made it down in one piece. It was a bit of a rough landing. I'm just not practiced enough in this aircraft, so hopefully they'll get better and smoother. If you are an expert in this, I'm more than happy to receive tips, and I'm sure there's millions of people that are much better. So if you do see that you happen to come by this video and you think, oh, I could really help you out, please do. I really appreciate that. What I don't really want is, oh, you're not following the correct procedures, because we know we're not. That's not the point. So at this stage we might as well taxi to the terminal. I'll show you the buildings. It's quite nice. It's a lovely Art Deco building, and it's modelled quite nicely as well. So you're supposed to stay on these. It's a bit faint actually. I don't know whether that's the lighting, but you're supposed to stay on the yellow lines. There's your taxi lines. These aircraft that you see are static. They're part of the scenery. They will never ever move. But like I said, you can get programs that will actually inject real traffic that follow real world schedules. It's really cool. Like I said, you can, if you want it to be, this can be incredibly realistic. I used to fly for BA Virtual, flying 737s, mostly in Europe, and that's a lot of fun. Maybe I'll do a series on that, but I've actually stopped flying for them now. You have to log at least one flight a month, and I don't know, I kept up, I think I logged something like 60 hours, which is quite a bit. But then I got, way late. Yeah, it's not very flexible. But again, it sort of reflects the real world, I guess. You certainly can't jump, get a job at BA and then jump straight onto a 777 or a 747. You've got to climb through the ranks. And obviously you'd be a first officer to start with in the right hand seat. So I'll tell you what, let's go to the main. This is the control tower. Anyway, you get an idea of it. So I hope you're going to enjoy this. I've had a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to going to some really exotic places. Not that Shoreham isn't exotic. Oops, we've come to a complete stop there. But yeah, if you'd like us to visit your country, your airport, your airfield, then by all means, let us know. I'd be really into that. I've spent a lot of time in Thailand, as I mentioned before, so I'd like to do some of the there we go, welcome to Shoreham Airport. I'd like to do some of the Thai islands, because they're really beautiful, so that would be a lot of fun. So I guess we can shut this thing down. I suppose the easiest way is to shut the fuel off and turn our ignition off. We can basically, oops, wrong run. Reset the cockpit. It's called cleaning up. You would usually do that as you've landed, and since I was talking too much, we didn't do that. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. I just wanted to see if they've modelled the door. I think they've modelled this one. Maybe not. Okay. Anyway, thanks for joining us, guys. Appreciate your feedback. Hope you've enjoyed it. Do comment, do share, do subscribe, and we'll see you in this next series. I don't know. We'll just be somewhere exotic. I'll have a think about where we might go. And then, like I said, if you want us to visit your particular airfield, then definitely up for that. So leave a comment and we'll come and visit you. All right. Thanks, guys. See you in the next video. Take care. Bye.